Hello, I'm Patience Logan. I'd like to thank you and congratulate you on your Logan mat cutter purchase. For over 27 years, Logan has been the worldwide leader in the mat cutting industry, creating tools for the professional framer, artist, photographer, as well as crafter. Many of the features that are found in the professional framing industry are innovations that Logan has developed, and they're the same features that you'll find in our mat cutters today. Now, what if I told you that you could take an ordinary postcard, a photograph, or your child's art project and turn it into a beautiful work of art that's sure to become a treasured family heirloom for literally pennies? Well, that's just what we're going to do today. We will show you how to use your new Logan mat cutter and share inside hints and tips on getting truly professional results from all your framed art projects. Soon, you'll be able to create your own personal treasures to display in your home or to give as gifts to friends and family. We'll show you the most popular Logan mat cutters and demonstrate their use, plus share all the information you need to start cutting your own mats right away. We'll start with our most basic cutters for our crafters, working our way up to our mid-range artist machines, all the way up to our professional frame shop models. Whether you're cutting your very first mat ever, or you're an experienced framer who's moving up to a more advanced machine, Logan has the right mat cutter for your needs and your budget. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the video, because that's where you're going to learn how to expand your mat cutting capabilities with the great accessories for your new Logan mat cutter. Also, we're going to show you how to get more useful information from our website at logangraphic.com. Now, take that phone off the hook, sit back and get comfortable, because you're about to start an exciting new hobby that will provide you years of enjoyment, explore your creativity, and save you a fortune.
The Logan 250 Craft and Hobby Cutter features a 24-inch laminated surface baseboard, a removable guide bar. It also includes a bevel cutting head with a retracting blade, and a mat knife used to downsize sheets of mat board. Also included, 2 squaring bars with screws to attach them to the baseboard. For assembly, find the squaring bars, locate the holes on the underside, and press them onto the pegs on the top of the board. Flip the board over and use the 2 machine screws provided to tighten the squaring bars in place. To downsize mat board with the 500 mat knife, first loosen the knob in the center of the blade holder, set to the center hole, and retighten. To cut 2 inches off a piece of blank mat board, lift the guide rail, insert the mat board underneath the guide rail, and line it along the 2-inch mark on the squaring bar. Firmly grasp the 500 mat knife and cut along the edge of the guide bar. This slices exactly 2 inches off a piece of mat board. To install a blade on the bevel cutter, first remove the blade holding knob. Place one Logan number 270 blade onto the surface of the blade holder and slide down until the holes meet. Replace the screw. Make sure that the blade is going through the blade slot. To bevel cut a 2-inch border on a square piece of mat board, first insert the backing sheet and the mat board blank color side down. Again, line the edge of the mat board along the number of the border you wish to cut, in this case 2 inches, and use a pencil to draw 4 lines along the back of the mat board. Take the bevel cutting head, press it firmly against the edge of the guide bar. Starting at the near line, line up the start and stop indicator on the bevel cutting head with the drawn pencil line. Insert the blade with your thumb and cut to the far line. When the lines line up at the top, Use your thumb to retract the blade. Repeat these same steps for the remaining 3 sides. Always make sure that the edge of the mat board is perfectly aligned with the scale number for the border size you are cutting. After the 4th cut, the window will drop away and you will have a perfectly beveled cut 2-inch border mat. The Logan 301S Compact comes with a 32-inch long baseboard, a spring-loaded guide rail, and a parallel mat guide. Also included is a bevel cutting head with a retracting blade. It also features a start and stop indicator and a number 701 straight cutter with 3 blade depth settings. To install a blade on the 302 bevel cutter, first remove the blade holding knob. Place one Logan number 270 blade onto the surface of the blade holder and slide down until the holes meet. Replace the screw. Make sure that the blade is going through the blade slot. To install a blade on the straight cutter, first remove the chrome knurled screw and the metal blade cover. The 701 straight cutter has 3 blade depth settings: a top setting for safety for storing a blade, a center hole for cutting standard thickness mat board, and the lowest hole is used for 3/16 foam board. In this case, we'll downsize mat board. Insert the blade lining up the hole in the blade on the center hole and replace the metal blade cover. Reinsert the chrome knurled screw and tighten. To bevel cut a 3-inch opening on a blank piece of mat board, first adjust your mat guide to the 3-inch mark as shown and tighten both knobs. Make sure that you always use a backing sheet under the mat that you cut. Insert one color blank of mat board, color side down. Use a pencil to draw lines along the edge of the guide rail. Mark all 4 lines. Hook the bevel cutter onto the edge of the guide rail and line up the start and stop indicator on the back of the bevel cutting head with the drawn pencil line. Use your thumb to insert the blade, and with your left hand on the guide rail, slide forward until the lines meet at the top of the mat. Remove the blade by using your thumb on the blade holder. Rotate the mat a quarter turn and continue the same process. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free from the mat board and you will have a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. Notice the bevel cut and the perfect 90-degree corners. To straight cut on the 301S Compact, first remove the backing sheet and the mat guide. Insert a pre-marked piece of mat board color side down under the guide rail. Line your pencil line mark along the edge of the guide rail and hook the straight cutter on the guide rail past the edge of the mat board. Pull straight back and it will size your mat board. To reinstall the parallel mat guide, see that both knobs are loosened 3 or 4 turns. Drop both wedges into the mat guide slots at the same time. The Logan 450 Intermediate Plus features a 40-inch baseboard, a hinging guide rail, a 90-degree squaring bar, and a parallel mat guide. Included on the guide rail is a scaled production stop. Cutting heads included with the 450 Plus is a pivot and pull bevel cutter, that features an anti-crawl pin and the start and stop indicator, along with a 701 straight cutter with 3 blade depth settings. To install a blade in the bevel cutter, first loosen the retaining screw on the back of the bevel cutting head. Rotate the chrome blade holder up as high as it'll go and loosen the blade holding knob. Insert one Logan number 270 blade as far as it will go into the chrome blade holder and retighten the blade holding knob. Rotate the blade holder down so the blade goes through the slot and retighten the retaining screw on the back. To install a blade on the Logan 701 straight cutter, first remove the chrome knurled knob and the metal blade cover. The straight cutter has 3 depth settings: the top setting for safety for storing a blade, the center hole for cutting standard thickness mat board, and the lower hole for cutting 3/16 foam board. In this case, we're going to downsize mat board and use the center hole. Line the blade up on the center hole and replace the blade cover. Reinsert the chrome knurled screw. To bevel cut a 3-inch opening on a blank piece of mat board, first set the parallel mat guide to the 3-inch mark and tighten both knobs in place. Always use a backing sheet when bevel cutting. Insert your blank mat board piece color side down against the mat guide and down against the squaring bar, and set the guide rail down on top of it. Use a pencil to draw 4 lines along the back of the mat board. Hook the bevel cutting head onto the edge of the guide rail and line up the start and stop indicator on the cutting head with the drawn pencil line. Use the anti-crawl pin, insert the blade, release the pin, and pull back to your lower line. Repeat this process all 4 sides. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free of the mat and you'll have a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. To cut the same 3-inch bordered mat using the production stops, first install the backing sheet and the piece of mat board color side down against the mat guide and down against the squaring bar. Install the production stop onto the guide rail, slide to the 3-inch mark and lock in place. Use a pencil to draw 1 line along the back of the mat board and rotate the mat a 1/4 turn to the right. Now hook the bevel cutting head onto the rail at the far line. Line up the start and stop indicator on the bevel cutting head with the pencil line. Use the anti-crawl pin, insert the blade, and cut back until you gently make contact with the lower production stop. As you rotate the mat to continue cutting, the cut line in the back of the mat board tells you where your next cut begins. Insert the blade, pull straight back until you make contact with the bottom production stop. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free and you have a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. Notice the perfect 90-degree corners and bevel cut. To make a straight cut, first remove the production stop, the backing sheet, and the parallel mat guide from the machine. Place a pre-marked piece of mat board color side down under the guide rail, lining the pencil line along the aluminum guide rail. Hook the straight cutter onto the rail, grasp firmly, and pull straight back towards yourself. To reinstall the parallel mat guide, see that both knobs are loosened 3 or 4 turns and drop both wedges into the parallel slots at the same time. The Logan 750 Simplex Plus mat cutter features a 40-inch baseboard, a hinging guide rail, and a laminated board surface. Also included is a 27-inch squaring arm and a parallel mat guide that rides in aluminum channels that are held in place with machine screws. Cutting heads include a bevel and straight cutting head, plus 3 production stops. To install the parallel mat guide, you must first install the aluminum channels. Each channel has a rounded end. The rounded ends need to face inward. Press both channels into the baseboard. Stand the baseboard on its edge. Insert the screws from the underside of the board to secure the aluminum channels in place. To install the parallel mat guide, see that both knobs are loosened 3 or 4 turns and drop both sides into the channels at the same time. To install the 27-inch squaring arm, first remove both screws from the baseboard slot. One screw holds the line-up tool. Place the 27-inch squaring arm into the baseboard slot and replace the screws, but do not tighten them. Now use the line-up tool. The line-up tool sees that the slot in the baseboard is perfectly aligned with the slot in the squaring arm. Once that's installed, now you can fully retighten the screws. But make sure you remove the line-up tool before using the machine. Save it for later use. To bevel cut a 3-inch border on a piece of mat board, first adjust the mat guide to the 3-inch mark and tighten both knobs in place. Always use a backing sheet when bevel cutting. Place your mat board blank into the machine color side down against the mat guide and down against the squaring arm. Use a pencil to draw all 4 lines on the back of the mat board. Use the bevel cutting head and hook it onto the edge of the guide rail at the far line. Line up the start and stop indicator on the back of the cutting head along the pencil line drawn. Insert the anti-crawl pin, rotate the blade into the mat board, release the pin, and pull back, stopping on your lower line. Rotate the blade out after each cut. Continue that process for the remaining 3 sides. After the 4th cut, the window will drop from the mat and you'll have a perfectly beveled 3-inch bordered mat. Notice the perfect 90-degree corners and the bevel cut edges. To cut the same mat using a single production stop, install a production stop onto the guide rail and lock it at 3 inches. Insert a color side down piece of mat board into the machine and draw 1 pencil line. Rotate the mat a 1/4 turn to the right and hook the bevel cutting head onto the guide rail. Line up the start and stop indicator on the back of the cutting head with the pencil drawn line. Insert the anti-crawl pin, insert the blade and release the pin, pulling straight back to your bottom production stop. As you rotate the mat to the right, the cut line you just made in the back of the mat board tells you where to start your next cut. Continue this process all remaining sides. After the 4th cut, the window will drop free from the mat, leaving you with a perfect 3-inch bordered mat. To make a straight cut, first remove any production stops from the machine. Also remove the parallel mat guide and the backing sheet. You can use your squaring arm stop when straight cutting. Install it onto the squaring arm and slide it to the number you wish to use. Insert a blank piece of mat board into the machine, color side down against the stop. Set the guide rail down, and using the straight cutter, Hook it onto the edge of the guide rail, firmly grasp and pull back towards yourself, making the straight cut. To cut a 3-inch border mat using both production stops, first adjust your parallel mat guide to the 3-inch mark and tighten both knobs in place. Always use a backing sheet. Insert your mat board blank into the machine color side down and install both production stops onto the guide rail. The bottom production stop can be immediately set to the 3-inch mark. Now mark one line with a pencil. Turn the mat a quarter turn to the right and install the bevel cutting head onto the guide rail. Again, line up the start and stop indicator with the drawn pencil line. Before cutting, slide the top production stop down until it makes contact with the bevel cutting head and tighten in place. The machine is now set for one side of the mat to be cut with 2 production stops. To make the cut, use the anti-crawl pin and rotate the blade holder into the mat board. Pull back until you make gentle contact with the bottom stop. Because the machine is set for the short sides only, you must rotate the mat 180 degrees. This 2 production stop cutting system is best used when cutting multiple numbers of mats that are the same size with same size borders. Set aside this half-finished mat board blank and insert a fresh piece. Continue making all the short side cuts. To readjust for the long side cut, loosen the top production stop. Insert one of the half-finished blanks into the machine with the long side along the parallel mat guide. Line up the start and stop indicator on the cutting head with the top cut line. Bring the production stop down until it makes gentle contact with the cutting head and tighten in place. Your machine now is reset to recut all the long sides. The Logan 650 Framer's Edge mat cutter features a 40-inch baseboard, a hinging guide rail, and a laminated board surface. It has a dual-purpose cutting head that cuts bevel on one side and cuts straight on the other. Also included is a 27-inch squaring arm